All right, so back to the story. Basically, what happened next is, so as I said, if my mom and dad and everybody would have just talked to me and stuff, things would have been a lot different. I just wanted to get basketball videos. Now, if people understand about the basketball videos, I'm not going to go into details, but I did things like, I'm not going to say things too much because I don't want to make good players think, but I did things like these skips, these drags, these types of things that no player in the NBA does. No player does these things that I was doing, and I want to study what I did, and also the way I shot. I was considered one of the best shooters in the nation, or maybe the best in the nation, and the way that I shot was just. And what I found out later is, you see, at the time, I didn't really understand this, and that's why I think that my grandpa might not understand why I wanted video so much. Because at the time, my shot was still off because I hadn't really studied exactly what I was doing. It was only when I was playing with Compton College in 2019 when I started studying those videos and I started duplicating exactly, I didn't even know that I could fix it like this, but I started duplicating exactly what I saw, how exactly I moved into shots and stuff. And then I started shooting good again. Now, you can't teach what I was doing. It's something I did automatically, unconsciously, but if I had the videos, I can see what I was doing. Now, I wanted to get the videos, but as I said, I think the biggest problem was my grandpa had said in high school, after all the chaos happened, he said, okay, so yeah, no talking. He made a rule, no talking about the past, because if you're in the flow, you never talk about the past because you're completely in the moment, the eternal moment and stuff. So no talk about the past. But my mom and dad interpreted that as, oh yeah, no talk about the past. Let's make that a hard and fast rule, as opposed to they wanted to follow the letter of the law, not the spirit of the law. Part of the flow is that there is no formula, and a part of the flow is sometimes it's beneficial to talk about the past if that's what's beneficial at the time. That's what my grandpa would teach. At the time, I didn't understand the flow, so I didn't know what he was talking about. But now I understand it. So yeah, if you're in the flow, sometimes talking about the past would be important, especially in this case where, I like my aunt. I told my aunt I wanted to get my basketball videos from my grandma's house so I could put them on the line. And my aunt's like, this is why you have schizophrenia, because you're stuck in the past. Because, that's what your grandpa says. Your grandpa says, no talking about the past. This is why you have schizophrenia. First off, I didn't have schizophrenia. Second off, even my grandpa would say it would have been beneficial for me to get the basketball videos, to study and stuff. He said that that's a part of the flow too, to inquiry, to increase your understanding and stuff. So they didn't understand what they were doing. And they didn't know that I didn't have schizophrenia because my parents didn't even see me. They were in their house. They didn't know what was going on. I wish I could have talked to them, but they wouldn't talk to me. Now, like I said, the other problem was my grandpa's whole thing about, oh yeah, make Ryan independent. My parents misinterpreted it as, okay, let's completely throw him to the side. My grandpa's thing is, if you're independent, then you can't have ally enemy software and depend on people, because if you depend on people, then you have ally enemy software where if they do what you want them to do, then they're your ally. If they don't, then you're your enemy, and that's dualistic software. That's self-confirmatory, and that's why it's important to be independent. But my parents interpreted this as, okay, yeah, let's completely not talk to him at all. And let's, disregard him and dismiss him. And no, that's not what my grandpa was saying. That's not the flow. But anyways, so I wanted to get my basketball videos from my grandma's house. This is 2014. I just graduated in 2013. I graduated a bachelor's degree in psychology. And that's an important thing to point out because, the doctors would say I didn't have a mental illness. So I'm going to get to that. But I wanted to get my basketball videos. My aunt wouldn't let me go back to Los Angeles to just get my basketball videos. The ones that I had, the few that I had, it's sad because I had, I was scoring 30 points a game as a 9-year-old. I won a national championship. I was, doing incredible things as a 12-year-old playing with South Coast, making like 4 3-pointers a game. And I want to study that. I want to study what I did and everything. But I barely have any videos. And my dad didn't record because, as I said, my dad was wanted to watch, and he said he couldn't record and watch at the same time. And my mom was too afraid to make mistakes. And I can get to that more later, but my mom had anxiety issues with it. So she didn't record. So I had a few videos left at my grandma's house. And like I said, a lot of my videos were lost during the day that my friend tried to steal my car. I'll get back to that later too. But so I wanted to just get the few videos I had and put them online, because at this time I hadn't put them online yet. And because I wanted to make sure that everything was safe, because things were going chaotic right now. And I wanted to make sure that, I can get my videos, and I'll get to this more later. So I'm telling my grandma or my aunt, I want to go get my stuff. She's saying no, she's saying that, your grandma can maybe send them in the mail. but I don't want them to be sent in the mail because I don't want anything to happen to them. So anyways, we got in a fight in the car after the incident happened, which I described in the last lecture or last talk. And then I took my aunt called me a loser. I took her keys out of the car. And then I went out of the car. My aunt bit my hand. I threw the keys into the bushes. The police came. My aunt called the police. And then the police said we could take him to jail. But my aunt was saying, no, no, he has schizophrenia. You need to take him to the psych ward. So they're like, okay, we'll take him to the psych ward. So they took me to the psych ward. I don't have any symptoms of schizophrenia. I don't have any symptoms of anything. And I've never been diagnosed with anything. So I was at the psych ward and I was just sitting there in the observation room. Now the thing is, the way that it works is, they have to like just examine you in the observation room. Now at the time I wanted to write raps because I can only write raps when nervous, and I was nervous, so I was trying to write raps at this time. They give me a little pencil, you can write the raps. They don't want to give you a big pencil because they don't want you to stab yourself. So I'm trying to write my raps. Now the thing is, what was sad about the situation was, well, like I said, at that time I had become a right-winger for the first time in my life. My whole life I was a left-winger communist. Then I became and I was anti-white my whole life. And then I became a right-winger and I was pro-white. So I'm sitting in the observation room, and then I just want to kind of describe my shift again. Like I said before, I was anti-religious. When I was a leftist communist, I was anti-religious, anti-white, because I thought that religion was white supremacist. Then when I was a right-winger, I became pro-religious and I was pro-white. But at the same time, I didn't like Christianity in the sense that I didn't like the liberal Christians, or I didn't like, Jewish liberals. I didn't like any type of liberal. So I liked Islam better. I was kind of like Andrew Tate. Like, I liked Islam because Islam I thought was like, they make women submit, they make women not, act like quote unquote promiscuous, right? So, and I thought that was important for the white race. So I went from being anti-white before when I was a leftist, and I was like, let women do what they want to do. And no, you guys are just white supremacists. Abortion is just, people who are against abortion are just white supremacists, and they just, like that. That's the way that I thought. But then now I was, a right winger, so I was anti-abortion, anti-promiscuous women, and all that stuff, right? and so I liked Islam because I thought that Islam, at least they make sure that, they control women to not act promiscuous. The thing I didn't like about Islam was I thought that they were for, they allowed race mixing. But at the same time, I was like, but still, it's good because, before I didn't like Islam because, I didn't like Islam or any religion because I thought they were white supremacists. And one of the aspects of that was punishment for criminals. And I thought that, the criminal justice system was white supremacist, and it was mainly against black people. And I thought that, so I was one of those anti-police, anti-prison type of people, right? And I thought that like religions like Islam were, very against criminals. And I noticed like a lot of Muslims were racist against black people or people of color, right? People of color tend to be associated with being with more criminal. And I thought that religions tended to be more focused on punishment and, against criminals and stuff. So I was, I was anti-criminal. So I remember like I was listening to Mizrahi, who's a Jewish guy a Jewish like rabbi, and he was talking about how, in the Torah it says, if a woman, commits adultery, she should be stoned. And I was like, yeah, that's the way it should be, because I wanted to stop the promiscuity because I thought that was bad for the white race. So I went from anti-white to pro-white, and like he's talking about like criminals, like people who who steal things. There's serious punishments for that. And before I was very against punishment because I was anti-white and very pro people of color. But then I became very pro punishment. So again, like I switched. I went from completely leftist communist to completely right wing, pro white, fascist, pretty much. But so I liked Islam and I liked Christianity, but only the Christianity that was not like, oh, you should love your neighbor and not like not like that, but the fake type of love, like oh, you should love everybody, and so a woman should, Jesus, he said don't cast the first stone, And I was like, you know, I was listening to the religious people who would talk about that, and they would be like, no, but that's still. I remember I liked the Messianic Jews, because the Messianic Jews were like, yeah, but still Jesus would say, you know, follow the Torah, and yeah, that woman should be stoned, but you know, he was also trying to prove a point, but still he didn't disregard the fact that that woman should be stoned, and you know, like stuff like that. So I was like, yeah, you know. So I went from very much leftist, because left-wing people don't like criminal justice system and stuff, and don't like punishment because it's anti people of color, usually, because people of color are more associated with crime. But I went from being against that to being for, you know, strict punishment and stuff like that, and for the religious law and everything. Now later I would learn like, oh well, you know, the Sanhedrin would barely ever, you know, put anybody in jail and stuff, or barely ever use the death penalty and stuff. But I was very pro death penalty. I became a right winger, so I became pro death penalty and all that. So that was kind of the shift the transition I made. So then I'm in the observation room, and this is at the time when I'm a right winger. But you know, then I talked to the lady there, and the lady was like talking down to me. Talking to me like I was like a child or something. And I got frustrated with her, and I was like, you know, I don't want to talk to you. I want to, and at the time I became an Orthodox Jew, and I was very like strict religious Orthodox Jew, and I was wearing my seat and all that stuff. And, you know, so I was just like, I don't want to talk to you. I want to talk to, you know, somebody who is a man. I don't want to talk to a woman, because I don't think it's appropriate for women and men to be talking alone in a room together. I would rather talk to a man. So that's what I told her, because I became an Orthodox Jew at that point. Remember, I went to Israel in 2013, and before I hated Orthodox Jews because I thought they were white supremacists, and I thought that they were right wingers. But then I became a right winger, and I became like pro white. So I was like, you know, I want to talk to a doctor who's you know, who's a Jewish person. So she was like a Jewish man, and she was like, okay. So the next day they had me talk to the doctor at the behavior unit, and I started talking to him, and I remember I started to cry because, you know, it was very stressful. And but he told me, you know, after talking to him for a little bit, he said, Ryan, I have good news. He said, you do not have schizophrenia. I was relieved. I was like, because I was telling him how my mom and dad, they think I have schizophrenia. They're trying to make me take medicine, and it sucks. And the doctor was like, yeah, you know, after talking to you for a little bit, it's very obvious you do not have schizophrenia. He's like, you don't have the way you're speaking. You're not like the way that you're speaking. It's coherent. Like schizophrenic people, they don't have coherent ways of speaking. They don't make sense. They ramble. They call it like word salad and stuff. I didn't have that. I didn't have any delusions, he said, you know, because he asked me about the quadrant model stuff, and I was like, yeah. He said basically it wasn't a delusion. He said I didn't have anything that seemed like any type of delusion. He said I don't have any symptoms of schizophrenia, but he said it is possible that you might have bipolar disorder. He said he didn't know, but he said it's possible. So I was in the behavior unit at this point, and I was I was stuck there. So he said, so I'm going to suggest that you take medicine. I'd never been diagnosed with anything before. So he's like, I suggest you take medicine for bipolar, and we'll see. He said, I'll examine you for this week, and we'll see if you know, how things go. But he said he didn't know if I had bipolar or not, but he just wanted to test things out. So I was like, okay. So I stayed in the behavior unit, but I was stuck there. And like I said, I'd become a right winger at this point. I'm not going to go into all the details about what happened in the behavior unit because that was really crazy. But regardless, I'm going to just say they basically examined me for a week. And then at the end of the week, the doctor, they were going to force me to take the medicine, but a lot of crazy stuff happened. I'm not going to get into details. But by the end of the week, the doctor let me go, and he said, you do not have any mental illness. Now, he talked to my mom, apparently, but I didn't know he talked to my mom. And my mom was saying, he tricked you. No, he does have a mental illness. He is mentally ill. He does have bipolar disorder. He does have schizophrenia. The doctor was like, no, he doesn't. And then so he let me go. And then so I call my mom. I talked to my mom, and I'm like, Mom, the doctor said I didn't have schizophrenia. My mom's screaming at me, you tricked the doctor. You lied to the doctor. And I talked to the people at the behavior at the psych ward. I was there for a week, And they were saying, and they told me, you can't trick a doctor. A doctor, they said, if you have schizophrenia or you have bipolar disorder, you cannot hide it. And they said, if you can hide it, you don't have it. So they said, I don't have it. So so basically then, but my mom was screaming at me. And this is where I started to really realize that my mom was basically the problem, because I remember I was being extremely calm and I would just try to talk to my mom, and my mom would always cut me off. And this is the thing, she cuts me off. And then I would, I would feel bad because I would yell at my mom, but I know why I would yell, because I would be trying to speak and she would cut me off. You fucking loser, you fucking piece of shit. And she'd call me all these names, and the name calling, like I said, and it's worse than you can even imagine. And then that's when I would start to have to raise my voice and yell. And it makes me look like the bad guy. People, what are you yelling at your mom for? Because I can't speak. I'm not able to even say a word because she cuts me off. And she talks down to me. So I'm trying to talk and she's doing that. And then this is when I start to really realize, like, oh, she is the problem, dude. Because like I'm trying to be like, Mom, please, can you just listen to me? No, she's yelling at me, screaming at me, and I feel the need to yell at her, but then I'm just like staying composed. So, but anyways, my mom is telling me that I tricked the doctor, that I have schizophrenia and I have bipolar disorder and all that stuff. So, but at this time I was homeless and I was in San Diego, but it happened to be that it was during the finals week at San Diego. So I was staying at the library in San Diego, and I was staying there, and I would sleep in a room that had the door open in UC San Diego. So it just like was a miracle that it was during that week. So because the library was open 24/7 during that week, so I would just stay in the library all day, and I would write. But at this time, I had become a nationalist. I went from being, like I said, a communist leftist my whole life, and I become a nationalist right-winger. I was anti-white my whole life, and I became pro-white. So that's what happened in 2014. And I'll get to the rest of the story in a minute.